This is TLV1.
TLV1 Radio.
Great mixer.
I like Tel Aviv.
This is TLV1.
This is
Tel Aviv is a beautiful city.
Great city, great radio.
TLV1.
This is TLV1.
From the TLV1 studios in Tel Aviv, Israel, it's Lewis Live! That's your host, me, Ari Lewis. Good evening, everyone. Hoping everyone is well. Everyone's still partying, excited about the Maccabi Tel Aviv victory in the EuroLeague. We have a great show to discuss that and other topics. Bram Weinstein from ESPN will be on at 40 minutes past the hour. Pat Farber, legendary marathon runner and member of the Australian Parliament. He's in Israel. We'll talk to him at 50 minutes past the hour. We have Dr. Yuri Shaffer and much more. Quick break on the other side from Maccabi Tel Aviv, Sean James. We'll be right back right after this. Back here on Lewis Live on TLV1. As always, you can follow the station at TLV1.fm on Twitter. You can email me personally, Ari Lewis Show, ARILOUISSHOW at hotmail.com. Thanks again for tuning in. We got a great program ahead, and we're going to start with a great guest. He's been a professional basketball player for 8 years, and now we can call him champion from Maccabi Tel Aviv, the big man, Sean James. Sean, welcome to the program. How you doing out there?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you meet Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Shimon Peres said that he almost had a heart attack watching you guys win. I mean, this is a whirlwind for you guys. Has it still sunk in that you guys are champions of the EuroLeague?
I mean, honestly, it has sunk in already because we had our day of celebration yesterday, but we already back in the gym early today and already, we're already back grounded, to the level we need to be because we got a big playoff series starting this Thursday. So we already got that out of our system yesterday.
That's really incredible because most teams, when they win the championship, they get 3-4 months to rest. Not you guys. You guys got to go back to work and try to win the Israeli League, right?
Yes, absolutely. And honestly, that's kind of the bread and butter of Maccabi. It is the Israeli League. We're known for winning that, and that's something that we lost last year. And we have plans on bringing that back to Nokia as well.
All right, and we'll definitely talk about the Israeli League, but real quick, because you guys were the Cinderella in the Final Four. A lot of people thought you guys weren't going to win. Was the locker room, was the feeling, hey, we got nothing to lose, let's go out there and play, or was the feeling, no, we're the best team and we're going to show the world when we play in the Final Four?
Well, honestly, it's probably a little bit of both. We were definitely the smallest teams in terms of budget-wise, and, we didn't do as well in the regular season as those other three teams did. But at the end of the day, they're still men, and they're men just like, we're men. And at that point, it's the Final Four in Europe. You can't be nervous or back down from a game of that magnitude. So we just came in and believed in ourselves. We knew that the hardest game would be the Cheska game because they're such a big and talented team. But we knew, going into the championship, we had more confidence that we could beat Madrid.
Now, there are reports that over 10,000 Israelis travel to the Final Four to root for you guys. What does that mean to you, that you have all those people doing that?
Man, that means absolutely the world, because when you're going against teams, of that magnitude, you need every support. You need the extra push coming from the fans, and, they brought it, man. Times when we were down, especially against Cheska, we fed off their energy, and they're responsible for the win just as well as the players and the coaches.
We're speaking with Sean James, big man from Maccabi Tel Aviv. Now, Sean, this season of course, is not over, but it's had some bumps earlier in the year. Lost to Naciona, blowout loss to Jerusalem. The team seems really composed, and you guys have fought through that. How were you able to do that?
Just believe in ourselves, man. It's a long season. You're going to have nights when you don't have it. And, playing 2 games and traveling and all that. So we don't get a lot of time to prepare for these teams like, the other teams. They have a week to prepare for us. So we get a few days. And at the end of the day, that catches up with you. And those early losses, that was kind of those situations. But, winning the EuroLeague, knowing that we could compete and win at that level, it's definitely going to do well for us going into this playoff series and to close out this season on a positive note.
And throughout the season, a big part of your guys' success has been David Blue, who's been in the studio with me a few years ago. Took off that year for school. He's back, 33 years old, but he is playing great, scores in double digits off the bench. Just talk about his contribution to your guys' team. Well,
David is one of those guys, man. He's a locker room guy, and he's also, one of the leaders of this team. And he's someone that's such a matchup problem because they don't have forwards as athletic and can stretch the floor like David Blue. That's something that we were missing last year. He definitely provided that for us this year, with his shooting, his size, his ability to guard, the 4 and the 5 if need be. So, it means a lot to us to have a player of that caliber on our team this year, and we needed him in every single moment that he was out there.
Now, I always like to ask this to a lot of the Israeli players who play in the Israeli League, who played in college in the United States. Compare the two, because college atmospheres are very, very loud, and so are Israeli fans. They are also extremely loud. Just compare.
Honestly, it's. I don't think any fans, and I'm not just saying that because I'm in Israel or I play for Maccabi, but I don't think it's any fans, except, Partizan Belgrade, and the Serbian teams, they have some, and Olympiacos, the Greek teams, they have some intense fans. But outside of that, Maccabi Tel Aviv and Nokia has the most intense fans I have ever played in the arena with. Those fans, they're just nuts, man. From start to beginning, the energy, it's nothing like a college atmosphere. It's one of those things you have to be there to really understand what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, it's really incredible. Again, we're speaking with Sean James, big man from Maccabi Tel Aviv. Now, you're seeing the landscape of the playoffs in the Israeli League. Do you look at a team and go, we want them, or it's just, hey, we're going to take anybody on, we're ready, let's do this?
At the end of the day, you're going to get where we want to go, you're going to have to go through the best teams, and whatever team ends up in the championship or at this point in the semifinal, that's just a team that's in front of our goal. We have a goal of sweeping the Triple Crown, getting all the Israeli titles, and we just won EuroLeague. So we want to finish this year on a positive note, and that's something we have plans on doing.
All right, of course, grew up in the United States, played college in the United States, obviously a big NBA fan. I got to know, what's your pick? We're down to the Final Four. Speaking of the Final Four of the NBA playoffs, who do you like going in the finals and winning the title?
Well, you know what? I'm a LeBron James fan. I'm a team guy, and I think he's a big team-oriented guy. He does multiple things out there on the floor, so it's hard for me to root against, a player of that caliber. So, I wouldn't say I'm a Miami fan being from Brooklyn, but I definitely would like Miami to win it.
And, of course, Miami has some Israeli owners, so that's a nice tie there as well.
Yes.
All right. Sean James, champion this year and last year, all EuroLeague second team, so some great years, great accomplishments. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much, my man. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. We appreciate it.
All
Be
right.
well.
Take care.
Sean James, boys and girls, doesn't get much better than that. The big man from Maccabi Tel Aviv. They win a championship on Sunday. They go back to practice on Tuesday. He just finished practice, and they came on my show. We definitely appreciate that, and good luck to Maccabi Tel Aviv in the Israeli playoffs. We'll take a quick break. On the other side, the assistant coach of Maccabi Rishon LeZion, who certainly knows a thing or two about Maccabi Tel Aviv, AJ Mitnick. This is Lewis Live on TLV1. All right, back here on Lewis Live on TLV1. Just got finished with our great interview with Sean James. We're going to stay on gear with Israeli basketball. On the line right now, the assistant coach with Rishon LeZion and also the international editor at Sheridan Hoops, my main man. It's good to have him back on the show, AJ Mitnick. AJ, what's up, my man?
What's going on, Ari? Thanks for having me.
It's really been too long, but it is great to have you on. This is obviously a great time if Israeli basketball, Maccabi Tel Aviv wins. A lot of people say this win, this victory, is one of the best of all time of Israeli basketball history. What are your thoughts? You know the league very well. What do you think?
For Israeli basketball, absolutely. You know, Maccabi Tel Aviv in some of the other years when they won the championship of EuroLeague, especially the years when they had Sharas and Anthony Parker and Vucic, they came in not as the overwhelming favorites, but nobody would have been surprised if they took it. This year was an absolute shocker. I'd say anybody who, you know, said that 3-4 months ago they thought Maccabi Tel Aviv would be the champion of EuroLeague, you know, has a maybe stretching the truth a little bit.
Right, just a tad.
You know, they really took a lot of different times where they had adversity, you know, or they had the injury of Sean James that you just had on the show. His injury, when it was pretty big for them, people thought it would be something that they would really struggle with, not having that extra big man. And, you know, they took all this adversity and these missed opportunities and were able to turn it into a positive and rally behind it.
You know, it's interesting because I also work handicapping games for sports gambling, and Maccabi on Friday night was a 5-point underdog to Moscow because they lost twice earlier in the year. They win by a point. The Sunday game goes into overtime. Now, they win a lot because it's overtime, but did you think at any point, did you think they weren't going to close the show, especially at the end of regulation on Sunday?
Well, I mean, if you watch in the first half, you know, when Felipe Reyes came in for Mirotic, you know, things were looking a little bit tough for Maccabi. I think they were down double digits in the first half.
Right.
And then, you know, Tyrese Rice really turned up. Like, the combination of Tyrese Rice being able to get into the paint whenever he wanted, and, you know, Sergio Yul going, I think it was 0 for 6 from three-point. I think once got to the second half, and you saw that Yule really just couldn't put it together, I think it was pretty obvious Maccabi was going to come away with it.
You know, it's interesting in the game because they're playing Real Madrid, who has Rudy Fernandez, who played in the NBA at the Trail Blazers. This was a very solid team that Maccabi Tel Aviv beat for the championship. It was not easy.
I mean, they legitimately have 4 European players who all are capable of playing at least 20 minutes a game in the NBA, and Fernandez, Mirotic, who was a first-round pick of Chicago that I think either next year or in 2 years you'll see him suiting up for the Bulls, and Rodriguez and Sergio Yul. So they got 4 very strong players that, let's just say they're a little bit more well-compensated than Maccabi's players.
Right.
And they're, you know, on paper, they were more than expected to wipe the floor with Maccabi.
Now, it's interesting. This question was asked me yesterday. I was doing an interview. With Maccabi Tel Aviv's win, does it raise the level of Israeli basketball, meaning where the whole world will say, hey, champions came out of Israel, of the European League. The whole league must be maybe better than we thought. What are your thoughts about that matter?
I mean, I don't think Maccabi Tel Aviv's success in the EuroLeague necessarily has an implication on how strong of a league we have in Israel. But I think in general, the Israeli league has gotten a lot stronger. You can see this year that you have teams like Jerusalem and Haifa that, you know, they can hold their own against Maccabi almost any night. You see Hapoel Eilat and Ness Ziona, the fight they've been giving. And then you got Hapoel Tel Aviv that obviously, you know, with their crazy crowd and, you know, an excellent coach, they're always going to be in the mix. You got a few teams building new arenas. Now, I think the Israeli league, without any connection to Maccabi Tel Aviv, is something that's a little bit on the rise. But this definitely is something that I think puts us a little bit more in the international spotlight, and hopefully that'll only bring positive things for the basketball out here.
Yeah, we're speaking with AJ Mitnick here on Lewis Live on TLV1. Now, I saw a very interesting thing on your Facebook wall regarding a, quote, open letter to the Knicks about David Blatt, who is currently the coach of Maccabi Tel Aviv, going to the Knicks. I hear a lot of people saying if David Blatt's going to the NBA, the time is now because he is a hot ticket because they won the European Championship. Do you think he ends up in the NBA in a few months?
I mean, the NBA is a tricky thing. I think that there's no question that David Blatt definitely has the capability to be an excellent coach in the NBA. The question more is there has to be, and David said this in press conferences many times, there has to be a team that wants you, not a team that's interested in you, a team that offers you a contract and says they want you to be the coach. Now, to my understanding, this hasn't happened for David yet, but I really hope that, you know, now that he took the EuroLeague championship, He's won medals in the Olympics. He's won the Eurobasket. He's done almost everything he needs to do in Europe to prove that he is one of the most successful coaches of all time, not even just currently in Europe, that hopefully somebody will give him a chance.
And is it possible that he would be given a role perhaps as an assistant and maybe work his way up? Is that a role that you see possibly occurring for David Blatt?
If you ask me, I don't see any reason why he should leave Europe to be an assistant coach. I think he has one of the most prestigious jobs in Europe as a coach, coaching Maccabi. I think this summer he'll have his choice of, if not to stay in Maccabi, to go to another team to be very well compensated and to be in an excellent situation. So I don't see how it would be worth it for David to go to the NBA to be an assistant. But again, I'm not inside of his head, so I can't be the one to tell you if that's likelihood.
Very interesting. It's true. It's a good point. Why leave such a good job to be an assistant? And obviously, time's going to tell. There are a lot of rumors about him to the Knicks, but obviously we'll find out that pretty soon. Now, obviously, you know the Israeli league very, very well. Maccabi, I assume, are the favorites, but you could say they're maybe perhaps tired after having to win the European Championship. But at the end of the day, they're still the favorites to win the Israeli Championship, correct?
They're for sure the favorites, but you could see last year with Nanterre in France that as an 8th seed, they beat the first seed, I believe it was Strasbourg last year in France. And even this year in the German league, you see the Arlen Dragons as an 8th seed knocked off Bamberg. That's a EuroLeague team in the first round of the playoffs. So, yeah, for sure Maccabi Tel Aviv is the overwhelming favorite, but even in a 5-game series, we've seen crazy things happen. I mean, everyone's been tuning into the NBA playoffs. They've been absolutely bonanza. So, yeah, Maccabi Tel Aviv is the favorites, but I'm sure a lot's going to keep it interesting, and I know Jerusalem or Haifa, they'll for sure make it worth your while to watch.
How juicy would it be if it's Jerusalem versus Tel Aviv? You have Lior Eliyahu against his former team, the former captain. That would be something else, right?
Well, it's not just Lior. It's also Yotam Halperin and Yaniv Green. We're also serious players for Jerusalem. On paper, Jerusalem's team isn't really any weaker, if not even equal to Maccabi Tel Aviv. They also have an excellent coach in Brad Greenberg, have very strong Americans, very strong European center in Artyom Parachovsky. That it should be an extremely interesting championship. That Maccabi is for sure the favorite, but it wouldn't be such a big shock to see Jerusalem take the title.
Wow. All right, so we're in a treat coming up. We should have some great basketball. And, AJ, thanks for the time being on the program tonight. And, of course, Mazal Tov to you personally. And
thank you very much.
Sure. And we look forward to great basketball and great things for you. So we will be in touch. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Be all right. Be well. AJ Mitnick, boys and girls, again, the assistant coach of Rishon LeZion and the international editor at Sheridan Hoops. Quick break. On the other side, the Secretary General of the Israel Paralympic Committee, Avi Luhrmann. This is Lewis Live on TLV1. Back here on Lewis Live on TLV1. A couple of programming announcements. Of course, if you're following sports, especially sports with a Jewish angle, you know about the recent retirement of Yuri Foreman. Yuri, of course, is the first Israeli Jewish boxing champion. The WBA super middleweight champion of the world, Yuri Foreman, that's a 154-pound class. He was on my show 4 or 5 years ago. That really got my career started, and he's retired under very weird circumstances with his promoter, his agent, etc. We don't have time to talk about that this week. We will talk about that next week with Andy Gershman, author of Modern Day Maccabees, and we will have on Josh Halkman, the sports rabbi, talk more about David Blatt. Just a programming announcement for next week's show. Staying again with this segment, on the line right now, Secretary General of the Israel Paralympic Committee, Avi Luhrmann. Avi, welcome to Lewis Live on TLV1.
Hi, good evening.
It's great to have you on, and I'm very interested in this committee. And the first thing I want to know is, how many athletes participate in the Israel Paralympic Committee?
Oh, as of today, we have about 46 Paralympic athletes in 12 different sports.
All right, so that's the number there. And how long has the Israel Paralympic Committee been around for?
The Israeli Paralympic Committee has existed since even before the 1960. Israel even hosted the 1968 Paralympic game in Ramat Gan. It was the only time until today that we have the honor to do it. It was fantastic memories from this occasion.
Now, do you look forward to having the games hosted again in Israel? Is that something that you're trying to accomplish and your committee?
No, today, the Paralympic Games are play exactly with the same place as the Olympic Games. So you cannot split it anymore. That's why you can't host it until the day will come and Israel can host the Olympic game. Who knows?
All right. Very interesting there. Now, your particular position, Secretary General, what does that entail? What's some of the work that you do for the Israel Paralympic Committee?
My title is the same as to say a CEO, but just for what am I doing? We are actually dealing with 20 different sports, and we got all the events for each one of them, including leagues, cups, and all the other competitions. Of course, we are preparing all the national teams and all the athletes which represent Israel in the European Championship, World Championship, and of course the Paralympic game. During all these times, we take care for the athletes. We take care that they find out the best stuff which we can find for them with the elite sports department from Wingate Institute. We try to find out more, how do you say, השתלמויות, to teach them more things, to learn about the sports and about the preparing and about working the best way, even you got your disability. We try to work as very, very hard all over Israel to show the Paralympic Games, to show all the citizens from school age until grown people that to be a Paralympic athlete, it's a great honor, like any other athletes which represent Israel. And I can tell you it by my own story as an athlete, as a basketball player, who have the honor to represent Israel in Beijing game in 2008. And we try to go city by city, like we're going to do this Friday at Tel Aviv port at 12 o'clock. Even we start at 9:30 until 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock at noon, and we make a big carnival with the Negishut Israel, which come to show the people that the way that we have to be more open and to know how to get the other, even if you have disability. So we show the people how is to taste ice cream with eyes closed. We try to show them how is to play basketball, wheelchair basketball, and we put a big court there, and we let them try to play, and things like that. And I invite all the people who can hear me now to come to Tel Aviv port on Friday noon. It's going to be a huge happening, and it's a very exciting one. And I hope that when we go to the other cities as well, the municipality will open their hands to host us in the good way that we can represent the Paralympic game athletes in the every city, in their own city.
That's great stuff, and we'll promote that also at the end about Friday noon. Again, we're speaking with Avi Luhrmann, Secretary General of the Israel Paralympic Committee. Avi, tell us about some of the accomplishments, some of the success, victories that the Israel Paralympic Committee has accomplished.
You know, this is a very hard question, because we have really a lot of great athletes which bring a lot of proud to the Paralympic Committee in Israel and for all the Israeli people, like Keren Leibovich, which brings 3 gold medals in Sydney, or I can remember Hanoch Bodin bringing swimming pool also a few times gold medal from different game in Atlanta and in Barcelona. We all excited to see Noam Gershoni, a pilot who had a tragic accident, and he made a great effort, and he became number 1 in the world. And we all seen this happening in London, so this is the fresh story, if I can say. But in the past, we have a great athlete like Dr. Ron Balotin, who was the I replaced him in my job today. Is I think also one of the biggest athletes which bring so many medals from Paralympic game and World Championship and European Championship. And each one of them got his own story, even if he got hurt in the army, in the war, or in a terrorism attack. Like, we got Asael. Asael is 19 years old. And about 8 years ago, a terrorism killed his mother and 3 brothers. And it was, I don't know how to explain this tragic. And he moved on, and today he studied in the Wingate Institute. He played in the national team, in the wheelchair basketball national team, and he practiced in this moment to the European Championship. It's going to be in June in Brno, in Czech. And this young guy, 19 years old, he needs to fight with so many things, and the sports bring him something which I don't know if you can find in any other place.
That's amazing. Amazing. We're out of time for now, but real quick before we let you go, tell us again this Friday, give us the time and the place where people can check out this event.
Friday, it starts from 9:30 in the morning until 2 o'clock at noon on the Tayelet in Tel Aviv port. And you can't miss it. It's going to be a huge festival, Negishut Israel and the Paralympic Committee together showing the people. And you are all more than welcome, and we'll be very, very happy if you come enjoy something very exciting.
All right. Avi, thank you so much for the time. God bless you and all the work that you do. It's really great stuff. And thank you for being on Lewis Live tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for hosting me.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
Be well. Avi Luhrmann, everyone. Quick break. On the other side, the Deputy Israeli Sports Authority Director, Dr. Yuri Shaffer. This is Lewis Live on TLV1. Back here on Lewis Live on TLV1. Of course, that great music is courtesy of Tomer Gershman, who makes all the music for all my shows. So thanks to Tomer. And, of course, thanks to Udi for producing with me tonight. And you can follow the station at TLV1.fm on Twitter or email me personally, arilouisshow@hotmail.com, ARILOUISSHOW@hotmail.com. Of course, Bram Weinstein 10 minutes from now from ESPN. But right now on the line, the Deputy Israeli Sports Authority Director, Dr. Yuri Shaffer. Dr. Shaffer, welcome to Lewis Live on TLV1.
Thank you so much to you and to the listeners.
Tell us a bit about what your position does and what's the greater goal of the Israeli Sports Authority Director.
Well, first and foremost, to make sure that every citizen, no matter age, understand basically what are the advantages once entering sport and physical activity. There are so many benefits to being active in sport and in physical education and physical activity that we believe once the population, by and large, will develop the necessary awareness of that importance, the whole situation in Israel vis-a-vis sport and culture sport will be changed, and we will witness a nation that is far more healthy, happy, not to mention the more opportunities for youngsters to reach their maximum potential in elite sport and thus participate in world championships, European championships, and Olympics, and bring to the nation some nice number of medals.
Now, you've had a couple of events take place very recently. You had a women's run in Tel Aviv, and you had a children's Olympics at the Wingate Institute in Netanya. Tell us how those events went.
Well, this is actually part of the Israel Sports Week, where for the fourth time we gather youngsters, grassroots level, to perform what we call the Children's Olympics. And this year it took place at the Wingate Institute, our National Sport Institute, and over 85 communities from all over Israel send delegations to take part in the event, which was based on 23 different sport disciplines, Olympics and non-Olympics, and where children with special needs, like Special Olympics, participated. Altogether, over 4,500 participants took place in this wonderful and unique event, which my colleagues in Europe asked me to bring them some information about it in order for them to consider having such an event in their respected countries.
All right.
As far as the women event in Tel Aviv is concerned, it should be mentioned that this event every year opens actually the Israel Sports Week. This year we changed the strategy of the event from just a march of about 4 to 5K, which took place usually at the Tel Aviv port. We moved it to Ganei Yoshua Gardens in the northern part of Tel Aviv, and we have enabled all girls and young adults, women, to experience various sport disciplines. So we ask all the association and the sport association and the federation to come and open actually their doors, so to speak, and to let each and every one of the attendees to experience the activity and to learn about it, and later on to decide whether they want to engage in that sport or another. And all in all, it's for making the sport advantages aware to the public.
Again, we're speaking with Dr. Yuri Shaffer, Deputy Israeli Sports Authority Director here on Lewis Live on TLV1. And you have a couple other events that are coming up in the next few days, a night run in Beersheba and street ball in Herzliya. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, the night run in Beersheba is a unique run, which Beersheba decided to take upon themselves and develop last year. And last year already it was a great success, and I think this year it is promising to be an outstanding event with thousands of participants, grassroots and adults and senior citizens, who will decide which distance they would like to take and to participate in. And this is very, very unique because you run around Beersheba city, and at the end there is a great happening there with a lot of music, and I think it was fantastic last year, and there is no reason why it would not be the same this year, perhaps even on a larger scale. So this is Beersheba happening, which will take place this Thursday. And as a matter of fact, I intend to run the 10K run there.
All right.
And the closing event of the Israel Sports Week will take place in Herzliya Park, where over 300 teams registered already for the basketball street ball. And it's a game which three players are actually a team, and they play against another 3 players, and the one who wins moves to the next stage. And we will open this event this coming Friday, and we will have the honor to, and Herzliya will have the honor to host our sports and culture minister, Mrs. Limor Livnat, and our Director General, Mrs. Orly Froman, who in the past was a member of the Israeli national handball team. And so we expect and anticipate thousands of people to come and to actually watch this unique tournament. And this year we add to the tournament the wheelchair tournament for the handicapped, the Paralympic basketball game.
All right. Dr. Shaffer, sorry, we're out of time for this segment, but we want to thank you again for being on Lewis Live on TLV1. It sounds like you're doing great work and 500 events in 198 cities. Really great stuff, and thank you so much for being on the show tonight.
Thank you so much, and I hope you will have the time to come and watch it yourself.
It sounds good. I'm going to try to make a trip out there and watch it. Thank you so much, Doctor. Be well.
Bye-bye.
All right, quick break. On the other side from ESPN, Bram Weinstein. This is Lewis Live on TLV1. Back here on Lewis Live on TLV1, great show we had on so far. We had Sean James from Maccabi Tel Aviv, AJ Mitnick from Rishon LeZion, and much more. And, of course, you can always email me personally, arilewishow@hotmail.com, ARILOUISSHOW@hotmail.com. Now, for those of you who've been under a rock, you have not followed the Donald Sterling incident situation where he said some racist remarks which were caught on tape, and as a result, he has been permanently kicked out of the NBA. There's a lot of talk about the recent news of his interview with CNN. On the line to talk about all this from ESPN, good friend of the program, Bram Weinstein. Bram, welcome back to Lewis Live on TLV1.
Hey, how are you?
It's great to have you on. So the recent news, just to give everyone where the status is at, Mr. Sterling's been kicked out of the NBA, $2.5 million fine, but he still owns the team as of now, despite the lifetime ban. And then there was this interview with Anderson Cooper on CNN, which did not seem to help him. Tell us a bit about that interview and what do you think will happen from this point forward?
Well, he waited a long time to address the comments that were caught on tape and subsequently released, which started the ball rolling on all of this. And he chose CNN to make his first full public interview. And no, he did not help himself. For some reason, he continues to target Magic Johnson, who I don't think there's a more beloved figure, especially in Los Angeles and maybe in the country, who's become an extraordinarily successul businessman in his post-playing career and might even end up buying the Clippers should it end up going that way. He did apologize on some level for the things that he said. He described it more as a mistake. The greater and larger issue is, and this is what's going to come to in the courts, is the NBA overstepping its bounds by kicking out its longest tenured owner over comments that were audio taped under suspicious motives, to say the least, in the privacy of his own home. There are American rights that are involved here, and he certainly is going to argue them, notwithstanding the fact that there are very few people that are defending him in what he said.
Now, the interview was very strange, going back to Anderson Cooper, because out of nowhere, he talks about how Magic Johnson has AIDS. He just brought it up, and then says he shouldn't be a role model. I just don't understand where that came from, because at the beginning he was somewhat strong. He was apologetic. Is there something behind the scenes? Because Magic Johnson was mentioned on the tape as well. Is there something we don't know about between Donald Sterling and Magic Johnson?
I don't know. We're not really sure what's going on. I mean, his name got brought up initially, at least from the tape, because the woman that he was either working for him or he was having an affair with, that's completely unclear at this juncture. But the woman who taped this conversation and subsequently says that was released through a third party, so someone had heard this conversation, obviously via her. Part of the conversation was about who attends Clippers games. And it is painted that she, at least in part of her relationship with him, is that she is someone who helps people who come to his games have a good time. Magic Johnson was someone who has attended the games. They have a very good team. And she took a picture with him and posted it to Instagram. And then part of the conversation that was taped was, why do you need to post pictures with him? And it was based mainly on the color of his skin, not because he's famous or because he's a living legend of American sports, but because of the color of his skin. And that, obviously, everyone by now has probably heard these tapes, delved into a deeper discussion about how he feels about, at least from what we can gather from this particular audio tape, how he feels about people of color, and started this ball rolling. Why Magic Johnson's name came up subsequently again, we don't know, because if you're going to take a straw poll in popularity of people in America, Magic Johnson would get 100% of the vote, and Donald Sterling would get 0. So I have no clue why he would go back. And then, if nothing else, if he was going to bring his name up, I would have assumed that he would have said something apologetic and he was just sorry that his name is involved in this at all. But instead, he went and said he had AIDS, which he doesn't, and went on to say he's not a role model based on his past history, which he's been open about when he was a player, with how many people he involved himself with at the time. But certainly no one is claiming Magic Johnson is a racist. And certainly at this stage of his career, he is a widely respected person in this country, not just for his abilities to play, but what his business acumen as well. And, you know, anyone who knows his history as well, you know, he refurbished a lot of underprivileged neighborhoods. So to sit here and say, what has he done for African Americans is false on its face as well.
We're speaking with ESPN's Bram Weinstein. Bram, part of the reason I wanted you on the show is because for some reason in the tapes, Mr. Sterling brought up Israel, and he said that Israelis do not treat black Jews well. They treat them like dogs. Where did that come from? I mean, Donald Sterling
I don't know.
He's not Israeli.
I don't know. Obviously, listen, I'm not Israeli, but I am Jewish, and I'm personally offended by a statement like that. You know, that being said, you know, remember whose mouth that's coming out of. You know, in personal view, I think he has a diluted view of the world. You know, but as you know, as a Jewish person myself, I don't want to be associated with views like that. And in my experience, I have not seen that. You know, I find that almost impossible to believe. Based on the amount of anti-Semitism that I'm sure he's experienced in his life and that many of us have experienced in our lives, that we understand what that is.
Right.
And I am mortified, really honestly, that he would make any kind of suggestion that anyone would believe that Jewish people are of like mind of that. I couldn't disagree with him more.
Yeah, it was really something else. I was shocked when I heard it. We're almost out of time. This has been really a fantastic interview, but what we got to know is what likely will happen, because let's say they cannot force him to sell his team. It sounds like the players and Coach Doc Rivers don't want to be there. Doc Rivers said if he's going to be the owner, meaning Donald Sterling, I'm not sure I want to coach. So you could have a situation where people walk out. LeBron James has said he will organize an entire NBA player lockout if Donald Sterling is the owner. So give us your crystal ball and what happens from here.
Well, you know, let's be fair about this. There's a process that needs to take place.
Right.
What he did say was reprehensible. Is it grounds for removal of property or forced sale of property? Well, that's what he needs to question in the court. And on that account, I side with him that he has every right to do that. You know, there is a large question about privacy here and what was violated. And whether you agree with what he said or not, which obviously most people do not, you know, is that something that should force him to lose a very valuable asset? So this process needs to play out, and it cannot happen quickly. And I was surprised the commissioner came out and said the things he said as quickly as he did, based on his background in law and based on the background of this particular person, Donald Sterling, who is a highly litigious man. This is going to be a fight, and I'm not sure what a court is going to say. The NBA believes by its constitution and its bylaws that they could force its sale, that they could force him to sell, and they could force his wife out as well, and that anyone who has any level of interest in that team will lose it as well. And they believe that that's going to hold firm in a court, but we're going to have to wait to see what a court says about it. I thought Mark Cuban, who owns the Mavericks, said it best a day or two after all of this came out, and there was a mob mentality of, we got to get this guy out of here immediately, that there's a slippery slope here, that, you know, what he said was taped, and in the state that it was taped, if it was not with his knowledge, that's illegal. That it was released, there is someone who is potentially liable for that in a court of law. And, you know, regardless, it is the privacy of his own home. That's where we believe that happened. And, you know, last time I checked in America, you have the right to speak your mind freely in the privacy of your own home. So I'm not really sure where this is going to go. I don't believe he is going to be the owner of the team in the, I don't know how long future. I couldn't guess. I think this is going to play out in the courts for a while. But I think the players and the coaches and everyone need to understand that there is no real quick fix here unless he is willing to walk away, and it certainly does not sound like he's willing to walk away, and historically, he has not walked away from anything easily.
Wow. Well, we're certainly going to keep an eye on it. It is a certainly interesting story to say the least. I don't know what will happen, but we'll definitely watch it. And again, Bram, thank you so much for your time. I know it's very busy out there with all this going on in the NBA playoffs. You've always been a great supporter of my show, so thank you for being on Lewis Live on TLV1 tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Be well. Bram Weinstein, boys and girls, really, really fascinating interview. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to wrap the show up with legendary marathon runner Pat Farmer. This is Lewis Live on TLV1. All right, back here on Lewis Live on TLV1, we're going to wrap up the show in style. On the line right now, legendary marathon runner and former member of the Australian Parliament for MacArthur, Mr. Pat Farmer. Mr. Farmer, thank you for being on Lewis Live on TLV1.
Hey, it's an absolute pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure to be chatting with you guys. How are you doing?
Doing great. So first question everyone listening wants to know, what is an Australian marathon runner doing here in Israel?
Well, I don't think you have to be in a location to know and understand the needs and the concerns of the people in that area. And Australia is a melting pot, just like the United States is and so many other parts of the world are, for so many people from all over the world living together in harmony and in peace. Australia is a great example of that. And so with that in mind, I have friends back home in Sydney, Australia, and throughout Melbourne and the whole of Australia that are from Israel, they're from Palestine territories, they're from Egypt, they're from Jordan, they're from Beirut, they're from Lebanon, they're from all of the countries I ran through and so many more. And they seem to get on quite well side by side there in Australia. And not only that, but they've told me about what a beautiful place it is that they come from. And yet all we hear in Australia and all we hear from the international press is about what a terrible place it is. It's in war and it's fighting all the time. So with that in mind, I decided to get across here and try and find a positive side to the place. And I have done that through the people themselves. It's been an amazing experience. We've inspired people along the way. We've tried to influence the peace process, and I believe we've done a good job along those lines. We've had literally thousands of people running with us from point to point on a daily basis during the 20 days that I've been running from Lebanon all the way through here to Israel. And it's been a success as far as I can see.
Now, you just literally finished a speech before you came on the air with us. That's how busy you are. Tell us what that speech was all about.
Well, that speech was all about letting the people here in Israel know, as I have done in the Palestinian territories, and I have done in Lebanon, and I have done in Jordan, that even though Australia is such a long way away, we care about what happens to the people over here and that we're all one in humanity. And that a lot of people worldwide sit on their hands and they talk about peace, but very few people are prepared to actually do anything about it. With that in mind, I thought I would actually convert my thoughts and my words of peace into action peace, and that's what we've done. So we've asked people to join the journey, run a little bit of it with me. Some people ran 1 kilometre, some people ran 20, 40, 60, 80 kilometres in a day, but all in all, people were inspired by what we were doing. They followed us via the internet. They followed us via Facebook, and they were moved by what we were doing. And that in itself has given hope to the people of this region. And without hope, there is nothing.
All right, last question for you. Where can people join you on these runs and run whatever they need to run, 20 kilometers, 80, whatever they need to? Where can they go find and do that?
Well, I've finished this journey now. I literally finished it late yesterday afternoon after 20 days of running, but it's not the end of my running. I'll be back into this region and many others around the world to do what I do. I've been doing these type of runs, which they call ultra marathons, for the past 32 years, and I'll continue to do them for worthwhile causes. I'll be back into this location, this region, but people can simply go for a run, 1 kilometre, 5 kilometres, 10 kilometres, and then jump onto my website, patfarmer.com, and dedicate their run to this peace run. And hopefully we'll have a petition for peace that will run into hundreds of thousands that I can take to some of these world leaders. My journey's not ended here as far as the job is concerned. From here, I get to speak to not only the Australian Prime Minister, indeed a number of the leaders of the countries that I've been through, and hopefully also onto the United Nations. And I'll keep working for peace in the region as long as I possibly can and while ever I draw breath.
All right, patfarmer.com, of course, member of the parliament for about 10 years and legendary ultra marathon athlete. Mr. Farmer, thank you so much for being on Lewis Live on TLV1.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
All right. That concludes our show, everyone. Want to thank everyone for listening in. Thank everyone for all their support. And, of course, thank you to our guests. We started the program with Maccabi Tel Aviv big man Sean James talking about winning the EuroLeague championship and going on and trying to win the Israeli championship. We then spoke with AJ Mitnick, the Rishon LeZion assistant coach and international editor at Sheridan Hoops, who talked about the importance and significance of Maccabi Tel Aviv's victory. We then spoke with Avi Luhrmann, the Secretary General of the Israel Paralympic Committee. Avi talked about some great events coming up this Friday. Check out that. And Dr. Yuri Shaffer, the Deputy Israeli Sports Authority Director, is saying that Israelis out there need to play sports and get in shape. Don't I know that? Bram Weinstein from ESPN talked about Donald Sterling's comments, especially about Israel, were not appropriate. And we ended the program with Pat Farmer. Check out patfarmer.com, who likes to do long runs for peace. Stay tuned for a lot of great programming, a lot of great stuff. But that's it for tonight. God bless and good night.